Alright guys, let's take a look at JavaScript string reversals. This question is asked so many times in interviews, and I've seen so many people fail the interview just because they don't know how to reverse a string in JavaScript. So today, let's fix that and let's learn how to reverse a string using JavaScript. Now I have some boilerplate code here. This, don't worry about it. All this does is just clear the console over here on the right so that we are not confused by any old values, and we always have the latest, newest value to look at whenever we console log something. And this function log, all I'm doing is just giving a shortcut to console log so I don't have to type this thing out all the time. So let's jump right into it, into the first. Actually, I want to do something else first. I want to do this one first just because I think this is the most straightforward and easiest one to remember. So we have a function here that receives a word or any sort of string parameter, and then we're using these three methods on string to first of all break apart the string and convert it into an array using the split method, and then reverse that array using the reverse method, and then join that array back into a string. So if we test this out, we're going to see that we have our string that's reversed here. Now this you can break apart and you can create variables for each one of these operations, but this is the most straightforward and concise way of doing it. Now a lot of people make the mistake thinking that the reverse method is available on strings. It is not. So if we have some string here, and then if we try and look at the IntelliSense, you will not see the reverse method anywhere here. And let's just say that we ignore the IntelliSense and we try to use the reverse method. We're going to see an error saying it is not a function. So there is a reverse method, however it is only on arrays. Now in this case, obviously this is not reversing anything because it's just one this is just a string, so it's just repeating back the string. But if we replace this with numbers, I actually have to log this out. We can see that we do see the reversal happening, and then if we replace this with strings, we can see that the reversal takes place again. So don't make that mistake. Remember, the reverse method is always on arrays. So just remember this: split, reverse, join. And remember to put these quotes here because these are actually delimiters. So for example, if you leave this out here, you will see that you still put back the string, but it has commas separating the individual characters. So to remove that, make sure you put in the quotes. Okay, so a lot of times the interviewee will ask you, well, I don't want you to use this method just because it's a very popular one and it doesn't really test any sort of logic. It does test a little bit of logic, but if they want you to use something else besides the split reverse join, you can always use this one, which is, again, in terms of conciseness, this is even more concise. The nice thing about this is that it shows the interviewee that you, or the interviewer, that you are, you know ES6 features, so you know some modern JavaScript, and by making use of this spread operator. So what this spread operator does is it takes any iterable and creates it into an array. So since strings are considered iterables, we can use the spread operator to create arrays out of them. So you can see that we have a string, and then we are using, essentially this is the equivalent to the split method. Again, let's give that a try. Test.split. So you can see that we get the exact same result. Alright, this is fairly straightforward. So moving on to something a bit more complicated, and that involves a little bit of logic. And I don't really like for loops, just because you can make a lot of mistakes here. You can get one off or off by one errors in here. It's kind of tricky to do, but in any case, this is, if they wanted you to use a for loop, then this is the way to do it. One of the ways, we have several ways. One of the ways is to use this reverse, this temp variable. So we're going to set a temp variable equal to an empty string, and then we're going to loop through the word, and we're going to add on top of this empty string. So I know that it sounds very confusing, but I've made kind of a sort of a pseudocode so you can see what's going on here. So we're looking at this line in specific. Now the first time that this, actually let me explain the setup for the for loop. So we have a variable, you can call it whatever you like. I call it x. We set that equal to 0, and now we take the repetition of the for loop as long as x is less than the word length. In this case is 3, right, because car is 3 letters. We're going to and then we're going to obviously loop over it and increase x by 1. And the logic that happens is the following. In the first iteration, we're going to end up with temp being equal to c. So how do we get that? Well, in the first iteration, remember, temp is starting off equal just an empty string. So the way it gets to c is we have word of 0. So we have this array of 0 index. So you're getting the c, right? This is in the 0 position. And then plus temp. And what is temp starting off? Well, it's an empty string. So really we have c plus empty string, which obviously is just c. Now in the second iteration, we start off again with the temp variable is a c, right? That's what we got from the first iteration. And then we're adding in front of it. Now this is the crucial part. This is in front of the c. The second letter, which is a, right? Word of 1 would be a in this case, because 0 is c and then 1 is a. and then 2 is R. So in the second iteration, we end up with AC. When it completes, we end up with AC as the temp variable. And now in the third iteration, again, we're starting temp is AC, right? That's what we start with from the second iteration. And now we're adding in front of it word2, right? And that's R in this case. So by the time that's finished, then it would be RAC, the temp variable. And that is how you reverse the string. So the key you have to remember is you have to add this word X in front of your temporary variable. Otherwise, if you don't do that, you're just going to end up with the same string. So let's say we do word X. You're going to end up with the string in the exact same order that you started with, because this is really equal to temp plus word X. There you go. Now that we have that finished, let's take a look at the next technique. And it's going to use a for loop again. By the way, all of these will be available in the GitHub link below. I will upload this on GitHub so you can go and you can look at this and you can test it and play around with it. Now this one is fairly similar to the last one that we did, but the for loop is just set up a little bit different. So in the last one we had the word X going before the temp value, but this time we're actually going to do the opposite. So first off, we are setting the X to be the word.length minus 1. So we take the total string, so this is 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 minus 1, that would be 6. So this is starting with a 6, and as long as this 6, this X, is greater than or equal to 0, then we subtract 1 from it. So now in effect we're going from right to left. So we're starting here because we have word.length is 6, so we have 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay? And then as long as that number is greater than 0, we are decreasing it by 1, and then we're just adding to the temp variable that character. So really what we're doing here is we're starting first iteration starting with E, because remember, this really means, this word X really means 6. So this X means 6, right? So if we count, again, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So we're getting E for the first iteration. Okay? And obviously 6 is greater than 0. So it means let's continue on. And then we are subtracting 1. So for the next iteration, we end up with 5. Okay? So 5 goes here in place of X. And now we get the letter or the character in the 5th position. So counting 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, we get S. Right? And so on. And here we're just, all we're doing is we're just saying temp. You're just adding these letters and so on. So notice we're doing temp plus word X. Okay, we're not doing the word X in front of temp. We're not adding word X prior to temp. We are simply adding it. We're concatenating word X to temp. So they're flipped. Now another way to do this actually would be to temp is equal to temp.concat word X. Now if you want to use this, I think that's better actually, because that shows that you know some string methods, for example the concat method. So that can be a little bit of a different twist, but you can always, it really is the same thing. It's just this is more, I guess, fancy way of concatenating things rather than using the plus sign. So these are 4 different ways that you can reverse a string, and this will actually come into play whenever we look at palindromes, because you need one of these ways in order to determine if a word is a palindrome or not. And I'm going to link that video in the description below, just because I think that they're very related, and oftentimes actually the interviewer will ask, can you write a function that determines whether a word is a palindrome or not? So you're going to have to know at least one of these reverse methods. But if you don't know this, then you cannot write the palindrome, the function to determine whether it's a palindrome or not, because the rest of it really is just checking whether this is true or not, true or false, and then based on that you return whether it's a palindrome or whether it's not. But I don't want to put too much into this video. I just want to make this video strictly about string reversal. So look at one of these. There's a lot of different other ways to do it, but these to me are good enough ways, and I think that if you were to do this, you would separate yourself from the rest of the crowd that just can't do this sort of stuff. Well, thank you for watching, guys, and remember, the GitHub link is down below in the description. Take this, play around with it, memorize it, so that you can actually use this inside a palindrome to create a palindrome checking function and go and pass your interview and get that job.